What's up, everybody? Welcome back to White Sox Daily once again. I am Aaron Feely, and we'll jump right on into it here with some White Sox news as we kick off February here with some intriguing storylines right off the bat, including Frank Thomas feeling particularly personally snubbed, evidently, by a Chicago White Sox social media post just yesterday in regards to some of the famous White Sox firsts among the African American White Sox family. The post kind of went into great detail on some famous Chicago White Sox milestones reached by black Chicago White Sox players. Frank Thomas got essentially a passing mention and no on-screen graphic, no specific listing of any of his accomplishments, which was odd considering he's Frank Thomas. He was listed there next to, in kind of the subtext, Minnie Minoso breaking the team's color barrier, followed up with Willie Thomas, um, followed up by Dick Allen winning the MVP in 1972, being listed as the first black MVP in White Sox history. It said a feat that would also be accomplished by Frank Thomas later on in 1993 and 1994. And yeah, Frank Thomas, uh, not pleased to say the least, kind of took a lot of people aback a little bit with his reaction, jumping in to kind of rant a little bit on everything he has done for the Chicago White Sox organization, bringing the prolific career that he did to the South Side, talked about his statistics, talked about winning that MVP award and getting nothing but a passing mention, feeling that it was disrespectful to his legacy as a Chicago White Sox legend. Ended up going back and forth with a couple of fans that attempted to play peacekeeper, including one interaction with Alec Foreman, who tells him, "Frank, don't let the account get to you. It's probably a young kid who doesn't know much about Sox history. We all know you are the best player we've ever had. You are a hero and an icon to many. Love you, Big Hurt." To which Frank Thomas simply replied, "Bull crap." So, Frank Thomas clearly in a bit of a state of hurt at the moment. And yeah, it was certainly interesting. Obviously you see this and you start to think it is fairly odd that Frank Thomas would feel so strongly about what is essentially just a meaningless social media post. Um, it was a post designed to highlight some positives of White Sox history and what they've meant to the black community in professional baseball. But and any sort of personal note with Frank Thomas, whatever. Frank Thomas does not see it that way, but it is odd. I mean, he is Frank Thomas, that he's not included at all, especially since, as it briefly touches on, he won back-to-back MVPs in the American League in 1993 and 1994. He was a World Series champion with the Chicago White Sox, part of the '05 team. Signed the one-day contract in 2010 to make sure that he retired as a Chicago White Sox player. He is a legend of this ball club. And as mentioned here by Alec Foreman, a hero and an icon to many. A baffling decision to barely include him in the post at all, but then arguably equally as baffling that there was such a visceral reaction to it. Just a strange instance all around here for the Chicago White Sox and for Frank Thomas, and hopefully a relationship that is not tarnished in any capacity by this interaction. It can still be mended. Frank Thomas, obviously, still a great, legendary player that you'd like to have in your back pocket if you're the Chicago White Sox, to still be a spokesperson, still make special appearances on behalf of the team. Speaking of the teams, we'll kind of move on off of that. Going back now to yesterday's trade, the Jordan Hicks trade, as it was primarily focused upon and seen, did feature sort of almost in passing an additional acquisition in there with the pairing with David Sandlin as another prospect added on, that was added on specifically as incentive for the White Sox to take on Jordan Hicks' contract. The Red Sox wanted to dump the salary, so they threw in an additional prospect to help sweeten the pot and get the White Sox to take that on. But there's a lot of talk now about, was Sandlin kind of maybe the hidden gem in this trade? Southside Showdown even doing an article specifying that they believe he could be the most important part of the trade. He was an 11th round pick for the Royals back in 2022. Didn't really, so not a guy that came in with a ton of flash, pomp, or circumstance. But he ended up with a 3.51 ERA in his 14 starts in his first full season. Ended up splitting between high A and low A. The Royals ended up trading him just prior to 2024, so he bounced around a little bit. ERA never really got to a point where it seemed like anything special or spectacular, but a guy that was always heralded as having really solid stuff, really solid upside. And of course, they get him for essentially a throw-in deal. He's the free toaster you get with the new car when you go to a fancy car dealership, right? He was just kind of the please, if you will pay Jordan Hicks what we owe him, go ahead and pick any prize off the top shelf type of a deal here. And the White Sox are hoping they got a top shelf prize here in Sandlin. We'll have to see how it works out, but a guy with incredible upside, great spin rate, great stuff, and we'll see how that pans out. But he's certainly into the category that the White Sox have been buying into a lot this year, of a guy with high upside being bought at a low cost right now, as an 11th round pick and as a guy that's still kind of working through the kinks of his game. And that'll lead us right into our next focus here, and that is the Chicago White Sox presumed starting lineup heading into the 2026 season. We are this close, ladies and gentlemen. February is here. Later this month, spring training will begin. We're just days away from the first players reporting to camp, and the White Sox still starting to look like maybe they've got the outline, the general outline of an actual starting major league lineup going here, with the acquisition of Austin Hayes, with some more pitching help being brought in. It's still obviously believed right now Chase Mydroth likely the starting second baseman, probably going to be hitting leadoff. The debate on between him and Lenyn Sosa, I mean, maybe that carries into spring training. Lenyn Sosa did lead the team in home runs last year. That's obviously going to count for something, but more than likely going to be a guy that kind of rotates through, plays some DH, that just kind of finds a spot from day to day to be inserted. We would assume that as of right now, Chase Mydroth, for his defensive upside and his ability to hit for contact, will likely be the day one starting second baseman, probably going to be hitting there at number one. Miguel Vargas, we're going to go off the Southside Showdown article here where they make some of their projections, as for the most part I pretty much agree with everywhere they've got people spotted in here. Miguel Vargas likely looking as that two-spot hitter. Another guy that was competing up near the top of the White Sox last year as far as their home run leaders, probably going to slide in there at third base pretty much by default. He played some third base last year, played a lot of first base as well. He can play some of the middle infield if desperately needed, though let's hope it does not at any point come to that. But with the acquisition of Murakami, you're likely going to see Vargas there at third base, probably hitting there at the two, with Colson Montgomery likely going to be hitting there at the three-hole. Montgomery, he's going to be your shortstop. He's probably going to be your best offensive weapon all season long. Certainly a guy that you want to be. Maybe he and Vargas end up switching up. Depends on how kind of the momentum starts swinging, but I'd say probably day one, you're looking at Vargas there at 2, Montgomery at 3, and then Kyle Teel, with his ability to get the clutch RBIs. You'd like him to be hitting much higher in the lineup than he was last year. I think probably 4 is a good spot for him. Going to give him a lot of RBI opportunities. Still looking to get a little bit more power game out of the catchers. But Teel, a guy that we already know can make contact with the baseball, put it in play. And when runners are in scoring position, he came up clutch lots of times his rookie year, hoping to keep that going. He'll probably sit in nicely in that 4 spot, which will lead to Murakami coming in at the 5 spot in the lineup, probably going to be playing first base. We all kind of pretty much assumed that. It was already stated as well by Chris Getz that Murakami would be fitting in nicely there on the corner, probably going to be hitting there at 5. And that's where it gets a little bit murky because everything after that is kind of just a crapshoot. We'll just put them in direct order at this point based on where they were hitting last year and just kind of keep them that level in front of each other. We'll have Benintendi hitting 6. He'll play left field. Austin Hayes likely going to be your right fielder. He'll bat 7th. Pereira probably going to be your 9-hole hitter in center field. Just hasn't proven enough just yet. And then your DH, whether that be Lenin Sosa, whether that be Edgar Cuero, going to end up being your 8-hole hitter there. Cuero obviously also going to get some spots in there as the catcher. Lenin Sosa going to be fitting in a couple of times, probably at third base, shortstop, second base, sitting in row 3, section 8 at some point. They're going to put Lenin Sosa every single spot in that lineup that he possibly can fit into at some point. And then we'll finish things off with our fourth bit here, and that was just a quick look at some of the grades for the offseason that The Athletic handed out, and an opportunity given to the Chicago White Sox, the only B grade given to the American League Central. And while they didn't necessarily set the world on fire or blow anyone away with what they were able to do this offseason, a big opportunity in what was already a fairly weak division to get 4 opponents in the division that essentially did nothing. The bottom 2 ranked teams by the Athletics grades were the Twins and the Guardians. The Detroit Tigers didn't do much better. They only come away with a C. Kansas City Royals only coming away with a C. So a big opportunity for the White Sox this season. We'll see if they can capitalize. But that'll do it for today's episode. We'll see you again tomorrow on White Sox Daily.